welcome to Killer Score, the podcast that covers cult classic movies with killer soundtracks that we think deserve more recognition, compositions, all that kind of jazz. Yeah, you know the drill if you're tuning in not for the first time. If you are tuning in for the first time, welcome. This is the one. This is the one you started with. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm curious.
You're in for a weird one.
You are in for a weird one. I will give you that.
Did you come from when this movie came out? Because if so, hello, how are you?
Who did you vote for in the last election?
You really made it far. Like, wow.
We are so proud of you.
We are. Give yourself a cake unless it interferes.
No.
Unless it interferes with one of your medications. There's a high chance of that if you are old
if you're 97,
that cake's gonna be on fire.
Well, I'm saying they can treat themselves to a cake.
Yeah, give yourself a nice birthday cake if you're.
Yeah. If you're that old, I was about to say, wouldn't they be like 100?
They'd be almost 100.
Yeah.
Just like 93.
Yeah. Point is, good for you.
No, I said minus, not multiply. Yeah, 97. I was right.
Good for you. Good for
you.
You should pat yourself on the back if you're capable.
Have a good day, Gramps.
Yeah.
So, as has been alluded to, Erin is the ringleader this time around, and she has a doozy for us today, but enough of our rambling introduction.
Enough of our rambling and patronizing.
The oldest film we've covered so far.
This is the oldest film we covered so far. Probably the oldest film we will ever cover.
Yeah, unless someone ever makes a soundtrack for it and I decide to cover it for some reason. Because I think it is available in its entirety. The Thomas Edison Frankenstein.
What?
Oh yeah, that's on YouTube, isn't it?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. You've never heard of the Thomas Edison Frankenstein?
No.
Yeah, it came out in 1910.
Okay.
It might have been earlier than that. Because film actually started in 1891 or something.
Yeah, but the point is there is a Thomas Edison Frankenstein
movie.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, so as I said, this is probably going to be the oldest film we'll ever cover on the podcast. If you're familiar with Fritz Lang, that tells you how old this movie is.
Yep.
If you're familiar with German Expressionism, not Impressionism, that's a whole painting thing. Expressionism, like Dr. Caligari, for example. Another great movie, definitely watch that. But that also doesn't, that doesn't really have a soundtrack. This one does. This one has 4. So, the movie we're talking about today is Fritz Lang's Metropolis. And the reason I picked this movie is because a lot of the themes that you see in this movie still apply today. Fritz Lang, as we know, as some people know, he was a German filmmaker back in the 1920s and 30s. This was also in the time of Germany known as the Weimar Republic. I'm probably mispronouncing that. Was that right?
Weimar?
Okay, yeah. If it's German, he's handling it.
Weimar.
Tomato,
I'm American. I suck at pronouncing things.
So funny enough, this would be around...
I still say coupon, so come
funny
on.
enough, this would be around the same time that Bertolt Brecht was knocking around.
It was, actually, because this was in Germany in the late 1920s, so this was between World War I and the rise of Hitler. So it was kind of in that weird shit period of Germany where they were doing a lot of cool stuff with art and struggling everything else.
Yeah.
And struggling with everything else because no one had money. The politics were garbage. The politics only got worse.
Yeah, because Brecht made the Threepenny Opera in 1928.
So this is actually 1 year before the Threepenny Opera.
Yeah, and he probably would have been working on it.
He was probably working on that this time.
Yeah, and he had done several other projects in Germany at the time.
Yeah, Bertolt Brecht was doing a lot, and so was Kurt Weill.
Yeah,
Kurt Weill, not the modern musician Kurt Weill.
By the way, it fucking sucked to be Bertolt Brecht.
Yeah.
Because that guy did his stuff, and then Nazi Germany happened. And then he fled the country because he knew they would kill his ass.
Well, yeah.
If you've read the Threepenny Opera, you'll know why they would kill his ass.
Yeah.
And then once he fled to America, he got questioned by the House Un-Americans Activity
of Un-American Activity. The Committee of Un-American Activity.
Something like that.
Holy shit!
And then
they called him a communist.
And then after the Nazi stuff ended, because he was getting so much shit in America, he went back to Europe.
And then the Berlin Wall was built.
I love it when we have nice, non-political, apolitical videos on this.
Killer Score, the most apolitical podcast in existence.
Yeah,
we're super apolitical. We're up there with like other great non-political podcasts like Pod Save America, Chapo Trap House, the Trillbillies, all those non-political podcasts.
Fritz Lang.
Okay, so Fritz Lang was
not Fritz the cat.
I know, but we might do that movie too.
Actually, yeah.
I have a Blu-ray copy.
Ralph Bakshi. A lot of stuff in our back catalog of him, but
not to be confused with Fitz the cat either.
The hell is that?
The little black cat.
Oh yeah. I got confused for a
Fritz
second.
Lang.
Fritz Lang. Okay, so Fritz Lang was at the time and even today was known to be a socialist.
Yep.
This was not very kindly looked upon in 1920s and 1930s Germany.
No.
Mm-hmm.
No. But anyway, back to the movie.
Also not to be confused with Lana Lang.
You jackass.
It popped in my head. I have no self-control. I apologize.
Anyway, this movie is based off the 1925 novel of the same name by Thea von Harbou, who, funny enough, also wrote the screenplay for the film. That's not something you see that often, where the writer of the book also creates a screenplay.
Yeah, I feel like it was more common back in the day, but nowadays it's definitely less common.
It's definitely less common. It was more common, especially in pre-code films, because, for example, I'm just going to use this as an example. A lot of films that were made in the pre-code era, like pre-Hays Code, they could get away with a lot more stuff than they could during the Hays Code.
Case in point, Scarface.
Yeah.
The original,
not the Al Pacino.
Not the Brian De Palma one.
I was also going to say, another example of that is The Sign of the Cross, which had a lot of stuff going on in that movie. It was a pre-code film. Freaks, that's actually a great movie, despite the title.
Actually, yeah. Inevitable candidate as well, from what I've heard from this one.
I found a Blu-ray. But anyway, because what you can get away with publishing is different from what you can get away with film. I'm just going to use a good example, like Vladimir Nabokov's book Lolita.
Yep.
Yeah, you can get away more with a book than you can with a movie. But that's beside the point. I'm not going to go into that rant. I'm just using that as an example of things you could put in a book they can't put in a movie. Another example is Cormac McCarthy's The Road. There's scenes in the book you cannot put the film.
No Country for Old Men.
I was also going to mention a lot. You've read Trainspotting, for example.
Yes.
Ooh. There's a lot of stuff that gets cut out for the movie.
Or swapped around.
The book version of It. Yeah. For obvious reasons.
There's a scene in there. All I'm going to say is there's good reason it's not in the movie.
It's gross. Don't Google it.
Don't Google it. Just don't.
It's awful.
Don't.
PSA from Killer Score. Don't Google that.
Don't Google that. If you want to read the book, you can. It's very,
warning.
very long. It's gross. The scene we're talking
about. I'm fairly certain Stephen King was fucked up on mescaline when he wrote that part.
I think it was cocaine.
Or cocaine.
He was on a lot of cocaine in that time.
He was on every drug imaginable, let's be real.
Okay, anyway, back to Metropolis. Okay. So as I said, this movie was part of the German Expressionist movement, which includes films such as The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. If you're familiar with Expressionists, you know that there's a lot of things in there that kind of influence film as we know it today. a good example is Dutch angles. If you're not familiar with the term Dutch angle, it's when the camera is a little bit skewed to build tension in a film. To build tension while in a scene. But the reason Expressionism got its name, and also why it is so relevant during this time period, is that it emphasized the artist's emotions over reality. So it was very much an auteur movement. Very much a movement of, like, instead of going, okay, this is portrayed literally.
Yeah.
This is what these characters or what the artist is feeling.
Yeah, films were crazy back then, too. Like, since it was the hot new thing, money was just getting thrown
everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to look further than, like, the old W.C. Fields kind of movies and stuff like that to see how much money was getting thrown. Or,
or this, for example, Metropolis.
Or, one of the funniest examples, and it actually appears in L.A. Noire. There was this really shitty movie called Intolerance back in the day.
Oh, God, why do you have to remind me of that?
Which is the most terrible yet funniest movie ever, in my opinion, because it's literally like
the guy who made Birth of a Nation.
Yeah.
People were like
D.W. Griffith.
D.W. Griffith. People were like, "Hey, dude." Even back then, people were like, "Hey, dude, your movie's kind of super racist."
Keep in mind,
this was the 1920s and 30s.
This was the 1930s, and they were saying it was racist.
And
that's a very low bar.
And then he made Intolerance, which was an ungodly expensive movie that had like a massive set that they constructed out in LA as well. And it stood for years because it was that gargantuan.
And they used that as sort of a set piece in L.A. Noire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, if I remember correctly, in the time of L.A. Noire, it was technically torn down by that time, but... You know, it was cool. It was cool.
Yeah.
Few years difference. That movie makes that game makes some concessions. Like brake lights didn't exist at the time that game was set.
Also, you know, the whole Black Dahlia thing.
Yeah.
The Black Dahlia.
That was a few years early.
Yeah.
But he made Intolerance, where the entire film is just different historical like events of intolerance, and the point of each of the stories is always. Actually, the real intolerant people are the people that make a big deal out of things by being like, hey, you're being intolerant. That's the real intolerance. And it's just that repeated over and over again.
It's like take I'm just going to use this as an example.
Yeah.
Take an episode of The Twilight Zone where it has like that theme thing at the end.
Yeah.
But make it shit.
Yeah, and
it's like he's like a reverse Rod Serling.
A reverse Rod Serling.
Yeah, like where the message is, and so you will see the actual racists are the people who are really anti-racist.
And that was when his spirit passed on to reincarnate as Tom McDonald.
Does anyone have a hammer I can bash my head in with?
I'd have to go grab one, but I'm not gonna do that because I love you. So.
Love you too.
Anyway.
It was an interesting time for filmmaking. Films were weird back then. Still, I mean, everyone was still figuring stuff out. So like
things you can and can't do on film.
Yeah. You know, I'm
glad Lewis Carroll didn't have a video camera.
Yeah.
Oh God.
You would not want to see what's in his video camera.
It's bad enough you don't want to see his photographs.
Yeah.
Metropolis.
Okay, so speaking of back to Expressionism.
Yes.
It used visual distortion, hyper-expressive performances to reflect inner conflict. For example, being, as I said, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and Nosferatu. Two big German Expressionist films, which are still discussed today. Because, Cabinet of Dr. Caligari was basically the first film to have a twist ending, and everyone knows Nosferatu. Everyone. Even if it's just from SpongeBob, people know Nosferatu.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the story of Metropolis, as I said, is still relevant. The way I can describe it is, you remember the movie, what's it called? Sorry to Bother You?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is like a 1920s version of Sorry to Bother You.
Yeah?
Because... Oh, my phone just froze. Okay, I'm taking notes. It's a dystopian setting telling the story of Freder and Maria. Freder is the son of the city master, and Maria is a saintly figure amongst the city's workers. Basically, there's, like, a huge castle in the middle of the city that's designed after the Tower of Babel.
Oh.
And, it's basically, like, where this big capitalist overlord lives. I'm sorry, I just did that hand movement on camera. But basically, the whole plot of the movie, not the whole plot, but a good part of the movie is those two people trying to bridge the gap between the classes, because it's like the classes are literally separated in the city based on, like, their social order and how much money they make.
Yeah.
So, like, the most of the workers are, like, on the outskirts of the city, while, like, the bourgeoisie, or whatever you want to call them, are, like, right around the castle.
In other words, one could argue very strongly that Metropolis was sort of the bedrock of the social science fiction genre, or just the entire umbrella of science fiction in general.
I wouldn't say the umbrella of science fiction in general, because I have to give that to Mary Shelley.
Ah, yes, Frankenstein.
Frankenstein was the first science fiction
novel.
First science fiction novel. And don't forget, science fiction was created by a woman. Don't forget that.
Yep.
Like wine, by the way. Read the original Frankenstein if you haven't. It's a classic.
Yeah, and of course, like, a lot of people don't realize a lot of trends in science fiction that they think are, like, later than they are. A lot of them were probably created by Jules Verne.
Yeah, Jules Verne and H.G. Wells.
Yeah, because Jules Verne wrote a lot of science fiction.
I mean, he literally came... We didn't come up with the idea of the time machine.
That was Wells.
That was H.G. Wells.
Sorry. That was H.G. Wells. Sorry, I was thinking about H.G. Wells. Sorry, my brain's in H.G. Wells. But it's like Jules Verne and H.G. Wells were like the two authors that basically created modern science fiction as we know it.
Yeah, and then after that it was like Heinlein and like Clarke, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, Heinlein literally created the term space marine and pay it forward.
Oh.
Yeah. Because that was the Starship Troopers guy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Common misconception that he was a fascist. He was just a weird guy.
He was very weird.
He was just a
really
weird guy. Like, it's commonly believed he was more your classic libertarian because, like, most of his books are just like, grr, government.
Yeah.
And also,
like, grr, government.
Grr, government. I love strong women. And it's like, what?
It's like, all right, someone's got a fetish here, and we're not gonna,
Read Friday, you'll see what I mean.
Yeah.
I would say, someone's got some things going on with their life that, sometimes you should probably keep to yourself.
People don't realize how influential that guy was. He wrote Stranger in a Strange Land, which is one of the most influential science fiction pieces.
And
I'm just saying about the strong women dominating. I'm like, that's, you do that on your own time.
And he arguably created powered armor. In Starship Troopers.
And of course, Clarke basically invented, like, everything we think of with sci-fi. Like, if there is a robot trope, it was probably created by Arthur C. Clarke.
Funny enough, the term robot actually comes from the Slavic term robotnik, meaning slave.
Clarke and Clarke and Asimov, those were the guys that basically created all the robots.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, like, look at the 3 laws of robotics, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And, do androids
stream?
That's
Philip K.
Dick.
That's still. I'm sorry, it's just funny saying that's Dick.
Well, yeah.
I know his last name is Dick.
Come to think of it, Philip K. Dick basically created the alternative history trope of what if the Nazis won World War II.
Oh, yeah, the Man in the High Castle,
Man
right?
in the High Castle, which, yeah, by the way, I kind of love that he was smart enough to realize that the only way it was possible for the Nazis to win World War II is if the Nazis themselves went, you know, Hitler's kind of crazy. We should probably have him stop leading us.
Yeah.
They did a similar thing in Wolfenstein, where in the new Colossus, that he's still alive by the 60s in that timeline.
Sorry?
Yeah.
And by then, he's just a senile old dude who just points guns at everyone like a German Phil Spector.
Yeah, well, I mean, literally, in The Man in the High Castle, what they basically did was go, hey, this guy's crazy. Can you go put him somewhere in, like, a padded room? he is the man in the high castle. He is the titular man in the high castle. They literally just locked him up in a room and was like, okay, now we can actually do war.
Okay, Grandpa, just...
Okay,
sure. Yeah, we'll invade Russia in the winter. We'll invade Russia in the winter.
Just like, okay, Grandpa, just take your pills, and then we'll see you in a few hours.
We'll come back and ask you for some more great ideas, champ.
He's like the senile grandparent that no one wants to deal with.
Just shove him in the corner.
Metropolis.
Get in the cupboard, Hitler.
So this movie was critically panned when it came out. They said it was overblown, silly, trite, and this is my favorite one, too long to be enjoyable at 2.5 hours.
Oh.
Which is a standard length for film nowadays.
Yeah. What's really funny, too, to me...
Laughs and Scorsese.
What's really funny to me here, too, hearing this, and, like, some of the themes you described, I've never looked it up, but I wouldn't be surprised if, like, with the whole, like, citizen classes and stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if that was a big influence on 1984.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It probably was.
Like,
I wouldn't push it past it, just because I've read 1984.
Yeah, and there was that whole thing about, like, oh, if you're a certain grade of citizen, you can't drink or eat certain things, you know?
Yeah.
So influential is this film that it extends past the influence of that one medium and carries over to anime and manga of all things. Mm-hmm. Because Astro Boy creator and seminal mangaka Osamu Tezuka had seen Metropolis as a boy and made a manga that eventually got adapted into another film called Metropolis in 2001. Yeah. Only vaguely based on it, but maybe we'll talk about that in May.
So, another thing I was going to mention is, when we're talking about the score of Metropolis, there are multiple. And the version we're about to watch is the one on YouTube. I think this is the Giorgio Moroder score.
Yo.
Were there 4 different composers?
No, it's not 4 different composers. The thing is, the movie almost got lost several times. Like, it almost became lost media. So, every time a new version would come out, they would put a new score in. This happened 4 times.
By the same composer?
No, different composers each time.
Oh.
So it's not like they had 4 composers working on it at once. It was like, okay, this came out in 1927. This had this soundtrack, which probably was just some guy playing a piano in a movie theater. Yeah. They had
because you see, they were so stupid back then. They were so bad at sound mixing that they couldn't even get the voices to come out right. So they had to put in subtitles. Hey, dummy, get a proper sound editor so you could actually have score and dialogue in your movie. Idiots. Stupid.
I think this was also like a year before. It was around the same time the first talkie came out, but the talkies weren't like they were very expensive to make.
Look, man, I gotta go to the theaters and watch this film about a train coming out of the screen and killing the entire audience. It's gonna get me.
That's literally what they thought back then.
People are so stupid back then.
Oh my God.
They didn't realize it was a projection on the screen.
You know,
what do they think, that they fit a fucking train behind the fucking
curtain?
I want to know what the logic was of those jackasses back then.
You know what the funny thing is? That you mentioned L.A. Noire earlier, and the characters Phelps and Bukowski make a joke about that.
Yeah.
And Phelps describes how 3D movies would work.
Yeah.
Actually.
Oh yeah, and he's like, it's never gonna
catch on.
People would run out of the theater scared.
And I'm like, you realize? And then it's like, what, 40 years later, the 3D movie becomes huge in the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yeah, and the early 2010s.
And the early 2010s, yeah.
Nowadays, nobody really cares about it.
No one gives a shit about 3D movies.
Give it another 10 years. Give it another 10 years, it'll be back.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's like a fad, kind of.
I saw a Tumblr post back after I saw a movie in 3D. And I can't remember what movie it was. This was probably 15 years ago. But the post said, I wish the world was in 3D. And I'm like, you dumb bitch.
That's good.
Back to Metropolis. So, as I said, this movie was considered too long to be enjoyable. I'm gonna let that sink in. This movie's 2 hours and 28 minutes.
Hi, Scorsese.
Upon original release.
Hi, Zack Snyder. Hi, James Cameron. Hello, everybody.
Hi, Akira Kurosawa.
Hello, everyone. We are going to do some ASMR right now. I'm going to name some directors that make long-ass films. Scorsese, Kurosawa, Cameron, Snyder, George Lucas.
And that's going to be gift forever.
Yeah, anyway. Also, the movie was criticized during its time for pushing a communist narrative. That is the exact quote. The exact quote is pushing a communist narrative. Which, sort of, kind of, more socialist than communist, but I'm not going to get into that.
It's
spiel.
A whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
Look at 1984. If you're teaching that it's about communism, you're wrong.
Yeah, you're right. Well, you're right, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, the most well-known soundtrack of this, besides one that came out, I think, in, like, the early... No, it was after World War II. I think it was, like, 48, I want to say. But, anyway, back in the 80s, George Moroder did a soundtrack to it with Freddie Mercury of Queen, Adam Ant, and Loverboy. Those are just some 3 of the people who did some songs for the movie. I'm very excited to see if the YouTube version is the one that has a soundtrack. I doubt it, because you know how YouTube song licensing is. But I'd love to see a George Moroder soundtrack to Metropolis. And as I mentioned, the set design was huge, expansive, and expensive.
I was going to say,
this movie cost a shitload of money, and when it came out, I did not make it back. Let me bring up the actual numbers real quick. Because I'm not going to run it through an inflation calculator, because it's going to take me 10 minutes to do that math.
And we've already got a long intro, that's
We do, because, here we are. The movie cost, 21 million euro today.
Oh.
At the time, it was 5 million Reichsmarks, which is the equivalent of today being 21 million euro. It made 1 million back.
Oh!
In modern money.
Modern?
Yeah, in U.S. and Canadian home video rentals.
1 million?
Yeah. It made, in German money at the time, 75,000 Reichsmarks.
Wow. Because I was going to say, those sets, for the time, look like some of the most elaborate you'd ever see.
Yeah, as I said, it cost them, what was that number again? 5 million marks to make, and then it cost them, and they made back 75,000.
Wow.
Yeah. However, this movie has developed a huge following, especially after the World War II ended, when it got broadcast in the U.S.
Case in point, the aforementioned manga adaptation.
And also, it got, and upon international releases later on, especially in the 50s and 60s. And then later on, when it got more soundtrack adaptations and all that fun stuff, this movie ended up being considered a sci-fi classic by the 80s. However, at the time it came out, it was an ultimate flop. I have another note in here. Yeah. They Fritz Lang went and the set designers and all that, like all the crew who worked on building the sets, they were inspired by the Manhattan skyline.
Oh.
Of how to build the city of Metropolis, which I thought was pretty cool, like using an actual city. And this was Manhattan in the 1920s. It was grungy as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was before the Empire State Building was built. So it's like, we got a bunch of tall buildings, and don't walk around the streets, because you're probably going to step in shit.
I mean,
that's still true today, but you know.
I mean, it's an apropos thing for the whole class divide aesthetic that they had going on.
And the 3 art movements that were also an inspiration to the film was, well, not art movements, but the school. There was a school in Germany at the time called the Bauhaus. Not that Bauhaus.
I know.
Not Bela Lugosi's dead. It was an art and design school in Berlin.
No, he was alive.
I mean, he was, but we're not talking about the song. He was alive during that time.
He was alive.
I think he was still in Romania, though.
Yeah, I believe he was still
Yeah, before he escaped, I believe.
Before he immigrated to the US.
Acting circuits and stuff, you know.
Yeah. And Cubism and Futurism, which I'm not going to go into because I don't know enough about it to go into Cubism and Futurism.
By the way, you want to talk about how much standards have changed over the years? And, like, beauty standards and stuff? Bela Lugosi was a sex symbol.
Yeah, I could see it.
People forget that. He was a sex symbol.
I can see that back in the 30s.
Yeah.
I don't find him attractive today because I think of later Bela Lugosi.
Well, why would you find a skeleton attractive?
Exactly.
I mean, it's funny. They alluded to that in the Tim Burton Ed Wood movie. Fantastic, by the way. Go watch it. When Ed first meets with Bela Lugosi and he tells Ed in no uncertain terms that you are getting laid if you take your lady friend to see Dracula.
He was a sex symbol. He was. Like, people thought he was hot, you know?
Maybe it's the accent?
Yeah, girls swooned at the theater versions of it when he did the Dracula play and stuff.
I mean, if we're going by America, we love accents.
We do.
We love accents.
We love a good accent.
I mean, look, the most attractive accent is in the United States is considered the British accent, which is hilarious because if you ever heard anyone from like East London talk, that is not attractive.
Also,
I'm sorry, Cockney is not attractive. I apologize.
And also, like, saying the British accent is like saying the American accent.
The language is called English, guys.
Well, no.
I mean, it's just funny to me, you know?
No, because like that. The reason I say that is because there's like a ton of different British accents.
There's like 30 British accents.
Yeah.
Received pronunciation, Cockney,
Scouse,
English, BBC,
Liverpool,
BBC English. As people like to call it.
Geordie.
Yeah.
What's the one? The West Country.
You said Scouse, right?
I said Scouse.
Which is like northern, right?
No. Scouse, I think, is Newcastle.
North British, the Manchester
Northern British.
Hey,
Manchester. Oh God, Manchester.
Hey, Benji.
Liverpool.
Feel free to cover our tracks in the comments section.
Cover us with any ones we missed, Ben.
Yeah, Ben, go ahead and cover our tracks.
And it's funny because they say British like it, but sometimes they mean Irish, and I'm like, nope. Ireland is not part of the UK.
And that's
that's wholly different country.
That's when your doorstep gets kicked down by very angry Irish audiences.
You know what's one of the most attractive accents? Russian women.
I'm gonna expand on that.
Yeah.
Polish women, they have lovely accents.
Yeah. Unless it's like a babushka, obviously.
Unless it's a babushka.
Yeah.
Oh.
We've had bears.
Okay.
Metropolis.
Okay, so that's the end of my notes.
All right.
While we talk about babushkas.
Yeah.
And it's funny because babushka in the United States means something completely different. It means a headscarf. He's like, you're wearing a babushka. You're wearing a grandma? That's kind of weird. Where are you, a wolf?
Probably should have gotten this backdrop for Killer Babushkas.
Killer Babushka.
Really excited for this one, though.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be like a seminal piece of science fiction.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen it, but I've seen clips of it, and I'm aware of its historical significance.
Yeah, when I first started getting into filmmaking, I watched this movie. For those of you unaware, I did a lot of, like, YouTube videos when I was in high school. Anything ranging from vlogs, reviews, to short films. Don't look them up. Please do not. They are absolute garbage.
Some things from our youth are best left covered.
All I'm gonna say is I watched one of my vlogs and I'm like, wow, I needed sedatives.
Oh, how grateful I am that I never publicly released my failed attempts at being Super Mario Logan back in the day.
I am so sorry for you.
I don't deserve sympathy for this, Erin.
Okay.
but I do appreciate it.
Hey, you ever wish they had internet forums back in, like, the 1920s and stuff like that? I need to know...
I'm sorry, that was the ugliest laugh I've ever done in my life, because I'm congested.
I need to know what a 1920-something awful would have looked like.
Probably half the post would have been from D.W. Griffith.
I was about to say, it would have been really racist and anti-Semitic.
I want to see the 1920s equivalent to Grover House.
It'd be made with asbestos.
Yeah. He'd have asbestos in the stairs.
Is this how we're segueing into the movie?
Yes.
Yes.
Something awful for him to asbestos.
Grover House.
If you're not familiar with Grover House, just Google it.
Google
Oh, and it's not spelled like house.
It's spelled like the German H-A-U-S.
Like H-A-U-S. It is amazing.
And Grover, like, Grover from Sesame Street.
Yeah, or Grover Cleveland.
I think mine's more people know Grover from Sesame Street than Grover Cleveland.
America. The education
Did I ever
system.
mention that all my great uncles are named after presidents?
Yes.
There's only 3 of them.
All right.
And I'm glad none of them were named Grover. It was like John, William, and something else.
I'm sorry, we ran out of names.
Oh, John, William, and George.
We ran out of names. You're gonna have to be Martin.
No, we ran out of names. You're gonna be Millard.
Woodrow.
Well, this was around the time Woodrow Wilson was president, so who the fuck knows?
We're segueing, I promise.
We're segueing into the movie. We'll get to it eventually.
Yeah, films. We like them.
We like movies.
We like them.
As I said, this was a movie I watched when I was in high school, when I was first getting into filmmaking.
I still haven't seen it.
So it's a very influential film.
I've seen clips. I've read things about it.
I've seen The Robot Lady. Everyone knows The Robot Lady.
Everyone knows Robot Lady.
I've seen... Yeah. I'll tell you what my introduction to this was. This dude, the scientist dude.
Oh, yeah.
That's the image reference they use for a little theater technique that they call milking the giant cow.
Oh, yeah.
When you throw your arms up over expressively.
Yeah. So now we get to Howard the Duck. Oh, sorry, Metropolis. I don't know why I thought about Howard.
Oh, that's because you watched a video of Howard
I did
the
watch
Duck
a
when
video
I was in the shower
Howard
this
the
morning.
I'm half tempted to cover that on this podcast, however, because...
What is that movie?
Like, it's not a good movie.
And it literally tanked the careers of the writers, despite the fact that the writers had made, like, acclaimed films before that.
Yeah, like, and the thing is, too, for as not good as that movie is...
those writers also worked on the Star Wars sequels, because they were friends with George Lucas. They worked on Empire. They worked on Jedi. They also worked on, like, stuff after, like, the Radioland murders, but it mostly killed their career, like anything that wasn't already in a production pipeline, which is crazy because they worked on a lot of hit movies like Temple of Doom, American Graffiti.
That sucks.
It does.
But as not good as that movie is, it actually, in hindsight, has some really good acting, effects, and music.
Yeah.
I just noticed we've been recording for almost 40 minutes for this intro.
Now we're segueing.
Now let's segue. Let's go watch this movie.
Yeah, sorry. Welcome back to the thing, the movie, the Metropolis.
My hair is a fucking mess. What the hell happened?
Welcome back to Killer Score.
Metropolis.
Welcome back to Killer Score, where Dalton's tired and we're scared.
Look, I've had a long week, okay?
As have I.
Anyway, we have just finished watching Metropolis, is what Erin would...
That's what I was about to say before you cut me off, Richie.
Oh, Jesus Christ, this is a shit show.
Erin, I'm sorry. You looked like you were going to say something different.
Look, this went on longer than we expected. We wasted enough of your time with the fucking intro, so... What the fuck were we going on with? Okay, uninitiated. I'll start. Not a big fan. I understand what those assholes in the wool suits
why does it say Sherlock?
Uh-oh.
You're recording on the wrong file, Richie.
Don't worry. I have a solution for it. I actually do have a solution. I'm going to take that file and put it into the right one. We're good.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
That's what I thought. It's a big it's a wet fart of a movie where the entire message is just like, we live in a society. Curious, isn't it? Also, centrism is good, and you shouldn't do a violent uprising. You should talk with your evil overlords and be like, hey, could you not? Can't we work things out? Couldn't we all just get along? Some kumbaya bullshit. All I'm going to say is that the robot was based as fuck. They shouldn't have burned her at the stake. She should have been allowed to...
oh wait, she's still a robot.
She should have been allowed to, like, fuck up all of society. People suck.
I think the problem is in the world building.
Yeah.
Because they were like, if we shut down the machines, everyone's gonna die. And I was like, well, maybe you shouldn't have built the machines that way.
Yeah. It's just like, look, I understand what they were going for, but it doesn't work. And it feels like this. It really feels like a studio thing where they were like, hey.
It probably was a studio thing. It probably was.
We can't offend too many people.
No, I can't do that. And
in all honesty, I'm pretty sure it was a studio
there's also some pretty yikes racial stuff in this.
Yeah. I mean, I get that's the 1920s.
But, you know, blackface and, like, literal black, like...
Just black actors.
They literally have, like, jungle outfits
and
on.
It's like...
lifting up
a giant plate.
giant golden thing for a white woman to come out of.
Yeah. And then dance on.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, wait, these are the 7 deadly sins. And it's like...
And she's got, like, an Orientalist outfit on.
And it's like, also she's 17 and doing a striptease.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not much of a fan. The robot looks cool. I understand why people reference the freaking robot all the time. I'll give credit for the set building, cinematography, shot composition, all that. Lighting. All that's great. It's ahead of its time. However...
it is also a piece of its time.
It's also a piece of its time. And Fritz Lang's other stuff is just better. It's just better. Like, M is great. Oh, the noir work he did in the 1940s.
Oh,
seriously, watch some of Fritz Lang's noir films. Those are
yeah.
actually insanely good.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't like this. I thought it was meandering, to be honest, because, like, you could cut out so much of, like, the first 40 minutes of this movie.
Yeah, the first 40 minutes of the movie is basically meant to be like an introduction, which I feel like could have been a lot shorter.
It really could have been skimmed down. Like until the robot gets introduced, it's so boring. It's so boring.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, you see Maria once, and then it's like you see her again like an hour later. Yeah. And I was like, can we get more time with Maria? Who's actually a more interesting character?
And why is this character not being expanded on and talked on more? She's just there to be... She's basically there to be a damsel in distress. Let's be honest.
I was going to say she was supposed to be the Madonna whore.
Yeah, and she's both.
Ew.
Yeah.
Ew.
It's kind of boring, to be honest. Like,
because I did make the point in the movie that the character of Maria literally is a personification of the Madonna whore complex.
If I was an old-timey film critic back in the 1920s...
with the swallowtail suit.
Yeah, and I had to sit in one of those heavy-ass big old suits on what was probably a wooden chair with no popcorn or soda to keep me occupied throughout this film. No Moxie. Because they didn't give you little treats back then. You didn't get to bring a little treat into the theater with
All you had was probably booze.
You might have...
they did have...
You probably had a flask in your coat. And wait, no, you couldn't even, because it was 1927.
It was prohibition, so they couldn't even have
You couldn't even have a fucking drink legally.
So I got bathtub gin here.
I would have been miserable and angry watching this shit, too, and calling it a pile of garbage. Because, like, they didn't know run times back then. That wasn't a thing. So you're just like, all right, this movie's probably about over. Most movies nowadays are an hour long or an hour and 20 minutes long. Look at King Kong. That was a great movie. Wait, King Kong didn't even come out yet.
No, not yet.
No, that was in the 30s.
That was the 30s.
No, it was like 1928.
No, it wasn't. It was 30. It was like 31.
Yeah, it was an early movie. All I'm saying is if we're talking early movies, King Kong is a better movie. It's got a big old monkey. 33. King Kong's a better movie. It's got a big old monkey in it.
Also, can we just talk about how much of a fucking schmuck Frater is?
Oh yeah, Frater's...
He sucks.
Frater's a fucking idiot.
He's a dumbass.
Fucking rich white boy. I hate him so much. I hate this. I just don't like this movie. I think every reinterpretation of this movie is better than the source material.
I'm not sure if you'll be saying that about the Osamu Tezuka movie, but now I'm just sort of inclined to show us that for anime just to see what all of us think.
Yeah, that's fair.
Erin, I just want to say, for my part, I for one do see how this movie walked so others could run.
Yeah.
I do like the set design and the shot composition and the lighting and the atmosphere. But let's face it, it hasn't aged well, even for silent movies.
I mean, for some silent movies, it's aged well than others. I'm gonna be honest.
Obviously, I mean,
but it's still not. It didn't age like wine.
Yeah, it's not as entertaining as some other old
Nosferatu.
silent movies. Caligari, Modern Life.
Mm-hmm.
Like pretty much any Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin movie.
Yeah.
Like those have all aged incredibly well. You know, they're fun to watch.
Oh yeah, Young Sherlock is fun to watch.
Yeah, like that one bit, and I think it was Buster Keaton with the house.
Yeah, that was Buster Keaton.
Yeah. Good stuff. I'm sorry, I don't get it. Like, there was much more entertaining silent films out there, in my opinion.
Like,
even one of the earliest silent films, A Trip to the Moon, is much more entertaining than this.
Yeah, and most of that's missing.
Yeah.
Like, this, I feel like this movie is very much brought down by over-ambition, in a way.
The other big problem with it, in my opinion, is it's so repetitive.
It does get repetitive, I will say.
Running scenes.
At one point, we were playing the Benny Hill theme.
Yeah, I had just had my phone out.
Like they keep repeating the stuff with like, oh, the 7 deadly sins, oh, Babylon, oh, the Tower of Babel, oh, the Bible,
yeah,
Revelations.
You weren't gonna throw some Sodom and Gomorrah in there too? Like, there's so much shoved.
How about
in
some
there.
Adam and Eve, you fucking hacks?
Yeah, it just. I would have been angry if I watched this back in the day, too. Angrier than I am now, because I would have been in a stuffy wool suit. I wouldn't know the runtime. I probably would have told my wife I would have been home for dinner. And then I get back, and she's like, where have you been? Are you seeing someone else? And I'm like, no, the movie was just really fucking long. And then, like, my food's cold, and
she's mad at you, and the kids already went to bed.
And it's pre the microwave, so I can't just heat the food up.
You gotta put it in the oven.
And he's on the couch.
And I'm just like...
And you're sleeping on the couch.
And I'm, like, clacking at a typewriter, and it's like, will you turn that racket down? And I'm like, I have to write this review!
I have to write this review for the Post-Gazette. Apparently we're in Pittsburgh.
I have to get it out. I have to get it out before the morning. This is why the kids said they wish they had a different dad.
Oh God!
Let's put Daulton in like fucking Lederhosen and just
Lederhosen. Am I in Germany now?
Yes, because this is from Germany.
Do you think people in Germany back then were wearing Lederhosen casually?
It's a joke.
No one in Germany wears lederhosen unless it's a folk festival.
That's a joke, boy.
You're fucking racist.
Yeah, basically, you fucking hack. Not even recording on the right file, either.
For context of those curious...
No, it's in the video.
They have the context.
Yeah.
What are you, this movie?
No. They don't have the context for the audio file.
God, he's turning into the movie. He's repeating himself.
They don't have the context for the audio file, though.
He's recording in the wrong audio file. Wow, wasn't that easy?
But they don't know what... Okay.
They don't care, Richie.
They don't care about the audio file.
They don't care. You are this movie. You need more information. And it's like, you already gave me the information. I don't need you to drill in more information. This is how I feel when I watched, like, Inception, where it's like, no, don't you understand? You can manipulate the dream. And it's like, yeah, I got that. You told me that.
Dreaming. It's called lucid dreaming.
I'm going to show how you can manipulate the dream. And it's like, oh my God, you already showed me that.
It's called lucid dreaming. Just keep a dream journal every night.
Oh, God.
It's that simple.
Okay.
I would rather watch some long movies I disliked than watch this movie again. Like, I am one of the people. I am a Shutter Island hater, and that movie is.
I hate Shutter Island.
And I would still have rather rewatched Shutter Island than watch this, to be honest. Like, the protagonist is a putz. I can't think of a likable character in this movie.
Not even the scientist.
There's a bug in here.
There is. Somewhere.
This movie is making us focus more on bugs than it is on than the review of this shit. I just didn't like it. Groundbreaking effects, all that stuff. Yeah, wow, cool. But also other films did it too around the same time, and I just think they're better.
Case in point, M.
I was going to say spectacle over substance.
Yeah, it really is.
Think of it like Avatar.
It's like watching a Roland Emmerich film.
Oh, God.
No, because Roland Emmerich's films are actually fun. Early Roland Emmerich. I like Independence Day.
That movie is so bad.
But that's why it's so great.
It is a Roland Emmerich movie, complete with caricatures that aren't real people.
That's fair.
Welcome to Earth.
Motherfucker. Look at me, I'm the hillbilly guy who's going to save the day. I'm Jeff Goldblum.
He's just Jeff Goldblum.
He is, he's just Jeff Goldblum.
See, this episode's going to be the one where Daulton loses his fucking mind.
Going to be? It isn't already?
Okay, this is the episode where Daulton has officially lost his mind.
Oh, yeah,
We've
the
broken.
Score. I don't like the version of the score we got. It just feels like...
I was hoping the version on YouTube would be the Giorgio Moroder version. However...
It was not.
It was not, because
was that version?
It was Gottfried Harmflug something.
Yeah, Gottfried's score sucks. It just sounds like generic orchestral music.
The best
thing is, I think it was generic orchestral music.
It sounds like it was.
The piece was called Nopus.
Yeah, it felt like it was composed for like an actual like live performance thing where like I'm sitting there in a fancy outfit with like a martini glass. As like this orchestra is just like, and then they're just like doing the thing with the violin.
Doing that thing with the violin. I'm like, that's a banjo.
That's a.
This is a violin.
Oh, whatever. Upright bass. Fucking who cares? The piano players.
Cello.
Fucking. No one gives a shit. Who cares? The score sucked too.
Yeah.
I like how the last episode I had a lot to do, and this one I'm just
You're just reacting off of Daulton.
I'm just gonna let him play this whole thing out, because what can I say about this movie that would count as content, really?
I gotta see who's that's Instagram.
The robot was hot. That's the only other thing I really have to add. The effects.
The return of the Y boner.
Yeah, it's another return of the Y boner.
Somebody needed to redo that girl's makeup when she turned into the evil robot lady, though, because, like, too much eyeshadow, girl. I get what you were going for, but it just looked bad.
Yeah, I think the point was they were trying to do dark eye makeup,
to distinguish her.
This character.
You said dinguish.
Shut up. I think they were trying to distinguish the character between Maria and Robot Maria.
Yeah.
But, they could have done a lot more with makeup.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you could have done something slightly different, like at least done like something in the face to make it look like she's a robot. But I guess what they were going for was making her look human, but different. So they just covered her in eyeliner. Sorry, kohl, because it's the 1920s.
Yeah,
He doesn't like it.
Thumbs down.
I'm here, I guess. Like...
Richie, by the end, you were also looking at your phone and being like, oh my god,
Both of you were looking at your phone the entire movie.
I'm sorry. It got a little redundant after a bit. It's
dull. It's kind of dull.
Erin, if it's any consolation, it's like you've said, every single one of us has brought a stinker to the table.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest, I found The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari to be a much more interesting silent film. I haven't
seen it. Well,
it's
also only an hour long.
Well, it's also punchier, and I think the set design and costuming work is actually better in Caligari.
Oh. What the hell? Oh, cat hair.
Yeah, we have kittens.
We have cats.
That'll happen.
Because the set design work in Caligari is so much cooler to me because it makes it look like an actual distorted nightmare.
Well, they're also what they were going for in Caligari.
Yeah.
Was like a late 19th century kind of like distorted version of history.
Yeah.
Which is what they were going for. This was supposed to be more like futurist dystopia.
Futurism, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just didn't like it.
Hey, Erin. I'll remind you again. I brought explorers to the table.
You did bring explorers to the table. We got a great picture out of that movie.
And let me
great photo.
Let me be clear. Let me be clear. I feel like maybe if I had a different score, I would have liked it a bit better.
Probably.
Yeah, because the version I originally watched, like, the score you could barely hear, but I was still invested.
Yeah, original, I have nothing against silent movies. I've named several I like, but I would have much rather watched, Nosferatu, for example. That's a really good
That's
movie.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, the thing I am going to say is the movies you mentioned are all horror movies, and that's more up your alley in a way. Because you're more of a horror
I don't like science
fiction. I'm not saying you don't like science fiction. I'm saying that this movie is much longer and more tedious than the other two.
Don't act like I'm some popcorn muncher schmuck.
You're not.
I like horror films. I like science fiction.
I'm just saying that a long silent movie that's 2.5 hours, I can see you losing attention.
It feels trite.
Hug for the camera, why
don't God.
It just felt trite to me, to be honest. I can see the bones of influence in this, and I can see the bones of influence in a lot of these other early silent films, but I just think this movie, I understand it was the time, things were different, it just feels too heavy-handed.
Okay.
A little bit.
And that I can understand.
And repetitive, and it felt like it really could have used a cutting room floor treatment a bit more.
Yeah.
Because it just goes on and on and on, and it's hey, remember this thing we just told you 2 minutes ago?
Or an hour ago?
Yeah. It's yes, I remember that thing you told me an hour ago because you made a good point to hang on it.
Yeah.
And treat me like I'm a moron.
Yeah.
I just thought of a worse example of hammering info into your head. Mm-hmm. Remember the Suicide Squad 2016 movie with the whole heart weak point of the Enchantress?
Yeah.
Her heart's out! Yeah. We can end this!
Yeah,
Or, the greatest thing you'll ever learn is to be loved and love in return. Or we'll write it backwards. Whatever.
From Moulin Rouge.
Another movie he hated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that one I brought to intentionally torture you because I thought it'd be funny.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wanted to like Metropolis. I went in being intrigued and being ooh, this will be a fun one, but it was not my jam at all.
It kind of overstayed its welcome. That's all. But in a way,
it was like the friend at a party who keeps staying after you're hey, you can go home.
Know what it is?
I got some stuff to do.
It's the Midwestern goodbye of movies.
Yeah. And I'm just
I'm just hanging on your car door.
Yeah.
While talking to this person for an extra half hour.
No. Do you know what it is, Daulton?
What?
It's me while I'm at a party and also drunk.
And everyone's trying to go to sleep and you're still talking. And it's just Richie, I'm going to hit you with that bottle if you keep going.
Why isn't this asshole drinking?
Because it's 2 in the goddamn morning, Richie.
Wimp.
Look, I love you. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be mean or anything. You're the best.
No.
But I just didn't like this. I think Fritz Lang was not cooking. If anything...
Okay, that was funny.
If anything, Fritz Lang burnt the meat. It was like, Fritz, it's good, Fritz. Fritz, you're overdoing it. Fritz,
no!
Take it out.
They must see my genius!
He burnt the sausage.
Yeah, he did.
Mine,
burnt the sausage.
Mine cinematic sausage!
That sausage is on fucking fire.
But you're not going to get to the beauty of the sausage. It's on fire, dude.
Germany, I'd like to apologize for my slings
you were
of
kind of doing a Hitler voice.
for my sling of
kind of doing it.
Oh god, we're gonna get banned in Germany.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Jesus
Thanks,
Christ.
Richie.
They ban everything in Germany. It's okay.
Oh god.
They do though.
They
What
do.
what the shit is this episode?
I don't know. Apparently, it's just shitting on Germany.
Hey, Germany, I actually think you guys, even though you do suck in a lot of ways, I want to say your food game is underrated.
Bratwurst.
Yeah, bratwurst sausage. You guys invented the sandwich. Like, that deserves some praise. The sandwich is kind of the perfect food. And you guys invented, like, just so much good meats.
Absolutely.
You gave us pretzels.
Yeah, Bavaria, which is southern Germany and Austria.
They gave us pretzels.
Yeah, they did.
You gave us, like, you guys, your beer game is unbeaten. Everyone tries to copy your beer game.
I concur.
We're just talking about German food and nothing else.
And I guess your public infrastructure is pretty cool too, and your fashion.
Killer crowds.
Also, have you listened to music out of Germany that isn't German hip hop? I'm sorry, I will shit on German hip hop for the rest of my life.
Hey.
Look at Rammstein, you know? Rammstein.
Oh, wait. Falco? I like Falco.
Nina?
She's
crazy, but Nina.
Yeah. The entirety of Krautrock. Kraftwerk.
Ooh. Can. I love Can.
You guys are pretty cool. Boney M.
Oh.
Rasputin, lover of the Russian queen.
But yeah, I will forever shit on German hip hop because it's a bunch of white boys being like, I have problems.
German funk and hip hop, the German funk and disco is good.
Oh, I will give them that. German funk and disco. I'm just saying German rap music is hilarious.
Like I said, Boney M is great.
Would you count Falco as German hip hop? Because it's like has he rapped a little bit?
Yeah, sort of, kind of. Point is, Germany, you're pretty cool in some regards. Fritz Lang made some banger movies. I just think his film noir work is much better than his science fiction is.
I mean, over, right? I think we've.
What do you guys have to put?
Germany. All I'm going to say. Thank you for stuffing your meat and sheep intestine.
The Black Forest is really cool and beautiful.
I want to go camping there.
I have nothing to add except I like bratwurst.
Sorry, pig intestine.
Next episode is kind of up in the air. Filming
is up in the air because we have some scheduling stuff to work
I've got
out.
some stuff.
We'll be in New York next weekend.
Yeah.
They'll be in New York. I gotta do taxes and shit.
Oh shit, I gotta do taxes too. We both gotta do taxes.
Everyone's got to do.
Everyone's doing
tax
taxes.
season.
Jazz hands.
We still got some time though.
We have until April.
That's 2 months.
That's 2 months.
That's
what I'm saying. Is like we have until April.
Yeah.
You have until April 15th to file your taxes.
What are we, Ned Flanders?
One of two things is gonna happen.
January 1st. Time to get working on those taxes, Daddy.
One of two things is gonna happen.
I'm just trying to get my returns in early.
I know.
One of two things is gonna happen, and Daulton is in charge of either one that happens. Daulton, take it away, bud.
So, little forgotten movie came out back a while ago that is from the same guy who directed The Craft, of all things.
Which may be an episode on the podcast in the future. It's one of my favorite movies.
Yes. But he did a lot of weird movies aside from The Craft that people don't realize. And in particular, he did a movie that got pretty decent critical reviews, did okay at the box office, but seems to have sort of fallen underneath the wayside, which is the bizarre comedy musical drama Hamlet 2.
That's the real title.
Yes, about a guy who kind of has an existential crisis and decides to make a sequel to Hamlet. But it is also February, love season, the month of love, and it is the 20th anniversary of one of the first independently made British films I have ever seen that affected my sense of humor unbelievably so. Is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen, and I still love it. So join us next time where we either watch Hamlet 2 or the Zom rom-com that was the start of the Cornetto trilogy, Shaun of the Dead.
See you next time.
See you next time.